Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast, where we bring you the stories and insights from the top performing agents, industry leaders, and business innovators shaping Northeast Florida real estate. Today's guest is a powerhouse in every sense of the word with over 40 years of business experience in sales, leadership, and management. She's worked with Fortune 50 companies like IBM, co-owned a successful business in Greenwich, Connecticut, and built an impressive real estate career here in Ponte Vedra Beach since 2005. Her client first mindset, tenacious spirit, unwavering professionalism have earned her recognition in Jacksonville's Business Journal's top realtors list and Jacksonville Magazine's Women Empowered list, and even an appointment by Governor Ron DeSantis as Commissioner for Volunteer Florida. A dedicated community leader, industry influencer, broker associate with Compass, she exemplifies excellence in real estate and beyond. Let's welcome to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast, Mandy Morrow, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
Thank you. This podcast is only going to last so long. We probably could go on for hours because you, in our pre-show talking, you're now diving into AI, into that, and I think about IBM, and my mother back in the 70s was working with Texas Instruments.
Oh, yeah.
And at that time it was like amazing when they brought the watch, and it had a digital, that little red lights. Yeah. And now here you're working, and you've are diving into AI.
Yeah. Everybody in this business, for the most part, brings some history with them in terms of what they've done before. And I actually worked for about 23 years in the tech business, first with IBM for about 16 years, and had some very unique experiences at IBM that really parlay into my appreciation, let's call it, for artificial intelligence today.
Yeah.
Because during my time with IBM, not only was I in sales and sales management, actually started in Dallas in that regard, so I was quite familiar with Texas Instruments.
Yeah.
But then had a unique opportunity to join IBM's Watson Research Group, which is up in Hawthorne, New York, and totally not in sales, but actually working in a skunk works group, if you know what that means, and focusing on high-end supercomputing in the early 90s. It was absolutely eye-opening. My colleagues were these IBM fellows that were so smart that, I couldn't even understand what they were saying many times.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience that I had in understanding how technology can be applied in different areas. In this particular case, we were doing high-end data visualization. People, back then that was a new thing, but when you take large, disparate data sets, financial information, oil and gas information, and you're trying to glean insights very, very quickly, there's ways to do that, and back then it would be color coding and things like that. So I got an appreciation for technology and what it can do and can't do very early on.
Yeah. No, we were in Pearl Harbor. We went to Hawaii in March. And I didn't realize what had happened until I started reading some sign. We're inside the USS Missouri, and it was decommissioned and recommissioned and decommissioned again in I believe it was 92, if I'm not mistaken. All the computers and everything, almost as like the sailors just walked off the ship, because they're still there. And my kids are 12 and 15, looking at these things. I mean, what we can do in our hand today versus what those computers couldn't even do with the power of the federal government behind them is just mind-blowing. And now taking AI, and it's like the wild west of technology.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing, and there's pros and cons and ways to implement. And but what I have found recently is, and you look at all the key functions of a realtor, right? I'll say right off the bat, one of the things that I think is very key is understanding your client. You've got to understand your client's objectives and really ask a lot of questions. So your number one job always is to understand your client, what they need, when they need it, and advise and consult with them. And that's kind of the way I approach that. But once you do that, you need to also put together information that they need. And so I found that there's really two camps right now in the AI area that can help me do that more efficient and effectively. And that is getting market data research, which I used to do on spreadsheets as nauseum from the standpoint of, just really trying to analyze a lot of data, especially local data. You can always get national stuff, Zillow stuff and things like that. But really having a personal understanding of the market and then getting the data and analyzing it, the way I was doing it was, through spreadsheets. I'd download it from our MLS data feeds, and then I would analyze it that way. I still do fundamentally some of that stuff, but now what I do is I upload it to ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or any of the models. Gemini is really coming on strong now. And I ask it some key questions. That's the key.
Yeah, getting
the right prompts.
Right, the
and
right
all that
prompts.
Stuff. And it gives me insights. And then once it gives me insights, I can say, does this look right? Or is this something I didn't see? And it really helps me much more efficiently and effectively get the right data for that particular client situation. So it's an excellent, excellent tool directly with the clients.
It's almost like having, someone to talk to that is, look at the information, because it might actually bring up something that you didn't even see. I know you listened to Sharon Alter's conversation,
I did.
And the real tip I loved from her was how she has it write 2 or 3 different listing descriptions, and even shares the listing descriptions with her client.
I heard that.
I was like, oh, that is so get your sellers buy-in that you're doing the right thing and making sure you're putting out, putting that ad together and makes their house look great.
Right. I often said from the very beginning, I'm a consultant. I don't make the market, I just tell you what the market is. But given that I can tell you what the market is, where it's going, what I can see, then I can say, given what your objectives are, here's a couple strategies that we can look at to meet your objectives.
Yeah.
And they're not all the same.
Yeah.
So, that's.
Let's take this to what your thought is on. Let's take this to a newer agent.
Okay.
That doesn't have 20 years experience in real estate, let alone business. How it can what I sense is confidence. How using the AI to run your numbers in, get another opinion, or maybe opinion that just strengthens yours, and so forth, to be able to go into a listing presentation or even a buyer's consultation with just a little more confidence. Because we all like to say we role play, or that's we're going to talk about brokerages here and role playing, when we really, no one likes to role play.
Right.
No one, no one really likes. But you can role play with ChatGPT because
you can.
On how you're going to, and how by putting that information, getting that feedback, adjusting it, tweaking it a little bit, it just, when you walk in, you just have just that little air of confidence, and a newer agent can really excel here.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would agree, and much to the chagrin of many of the brokerages I've been at over the years, they all had their standard pitch, right? And most of it was all their numbers for the brokerage and then just a little bit for your numbers. I usually always created my own. And I would tell any new agent coming on today, your number one objective is ask a lot of questions to your client or to your customer. Understand everything they want to do. That not just they want to sell, but when or how or what are some of the issues they're dealing with, and really, really understand that. Then once you understand that, look at the market with a similar, vision, and say what has happened with somebody trying to sell in this scenario. And then treat that data as what you bring to the client and talk to them about it.
Yeah.
There's little tricks of the trade to go in there. Oh, I love the color, I love this and all that kind of stuff. But because you do want to be upbeat when
Right.
you walk in, you don't want to be critical.
Right.
But I think being authentic right out of the gate with a client, and if they ask you a question you don't know, especially as a newbie, say, you know what? That's a good question, and I hadn't thought of that. Let me get you the answer.
It really goes back to that old time phrase, take 2 hours sharpening the axe and 15 minutes cutting the tree down.
Yeah.
If you are, there's some people that really have a gift of gab, can get in front of people and make up a bunch of stuff. We know some people like that.
Yeah. They have scripts. And all this.
They just can roll off with this and carry on a conversation where most of us are not so nimble necessarily in front of people. But if you're prepared and you go in, you spend 2 hours sharpening the sword, getting the data, running it through ChatGPT, really fine print, and then going in and presenting that with confidence. That's your 15 minutes of cutting the tree down.
I'll give you a good example, and this was in the tech business. I was meeting the CIO of GE. And I had this long presentation put together, all the presentation charts that everybody used to do all the time. What was a PowerPoint or whatever that's called. And I had it all down. I knew exactly how long we had the meeting, and I'm sitting there, and he walks in. He goes, "Mandy, nice to meet you. I have 5 minutes." About had a heart attack, but you can't, what are you going to do? But going through the presentation, and I did the presentation, I didn't have an assistant do it. Going through all the data, I was able to distill 3 of the top things that he needed to know in this case. So the one advice I would give anybody making a pitch is, one, do your own stuff so you know all the words and all that kind of stuff. And if the words aren't your words, not throw them out and put your words in there. Know your key, and always have, before you walk into any meeting, what are the 3 key points or objectives that I have for this meeting, and just have those like taped to your forehead. Because if something like that happens, that's when you're going to look them directly in the eye. You're not reading from some PowerPoint, and you're going to tell them, here's what the deal is. Then, too, when they ask questions, you will have known all the data, and you could hopefully answer the questions. But if you can't, you go back. But that's the biggest advice I would have to anybody starting.
That just makes me think. Because you deal a lot in in the Ponte Vedra, some higher priced homes and so forth, the luxury market, and those type of consultations are a little different than someone who might be, a $200,000 or $300,000 home, selling their first home and moving to their second home, whatever that might be. And you're going in there to have a consultation. Would you say a majority of those people are used to that boardroom type situation? They're very busy.
Yep.
They only got 5 or 10 minutes.
Yep.
Then hopefully you end up being in there 30 minutes because you're giving them information they really want to hear,
Right.
In preparing to tell it, because obviously a lot of agents, they all want to be in the luxury, they want to be in the Ponte Vedra market because it's a higher price point and so forth, but it takes a little bit more preparation, and you got to have your stuff in a row when you go in there. And I like what you said, having at least the top. You quickly analyze, these are 2 or 3 things that he has to know. I've got 10, but these are the 2 or 3 that are the most important, and sometimes you're only able to get those out.
When you think about it, it's a judgment call that you're making. So you better be right if you're in front of that CEO that's trying to sell their home, or the high-end luxury buyer or seller. Because you're right, they don't have time. They have all kinds of advisors telling them what the market is, telling them their financial situation. So, you're the expert in this particular area. If they want to buy a home, and they've given you the criteria. I just had a wonderful sale in December, $13 million at the time. Last year was the 3rd highest sale, I think, in this whole area last year. So I had to know my stuff. But there's one other point I want to make about this particular one. I didn't know this buyer. She was a personal referrer of mine from somebody that had asked me, hey, would you put together some information on my home? My husband's just passed away. I'm not selling my home, but I just need this information from my attorneys and stuff like that. And I hopped to it, put together the information, gave it to her in a nice book, said if the attorneys had any questions, to give me a call. And that was that. And literally 2 weeks later, I get this referral from this woman for this high-end luxury person.
Right.
And so just as an aside, it's about relationships, but it's also about knowing your stuff. So, however any type of buyer or seller comes into your purview, whether it's a first time or not, it's really, I get back to this, it's really understanding that individual or family's objectives. And if you don't ask the right questions from the get-go or before you go to your presentation, you could be blindsided.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I think it was Sharon. If I'm not, well, I had two Sharons in a row. I had Sharon Mills, and then Sharon Alter. So I had two.
I know them both.
Both are great real estate agents, and I both of them. I think Sharon was we talked a little bit about asking more, drilling deeper, basically with every one of our clients. Because I do get real estate agents who call me from the lending side, and they say, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" And of course, I have a question.
Sure.
Well, okay, well, maybe, but do you know this? And they don't know it. And it's some really, I think the relationship, or they're a little shy, not confident. That's the only reason I could say why they didn't ask it. But, over the years, I would imagine you've developed to a point where obviously you saw a tipping point where, hey, you know what? The more I know from them, the quicker I find them a home. And then I'm getting a referral because they appreciated the fact that I actually took time to ask a few more questions that might have, not felt good, whatever it is, a financial situation. They don't like it, necessarily, but you got to get that stuff out so the transaction's just that much smoother. Yeah.
And that's another key point. Anybody I interact with, whether it's a first-time home buyer or somebody that has a lot of money, like an investor that bought, 19 homes from me from 2012 to about 2017, you really have to understand where they're coming from and understand their objectives. And it's not a transaction, it's a long-term relationship. If I am dealing with somebody, calls me up out of the blue, and wasn't referred to from anybody, and they're snapping questions at me and saying, and asking for some unrealistic stuff, or have unrealistic expectations of the market. I'm dealing with some people like that right now. But I have to ask myself, and this might sound crazy, but do I want to have a long-term relationship with this person? If the answer is no, for whatever reason, I'll refer them to somebody else or suggest that maybe this isn't a good partnership, because it is a partnership.
Yeah.
I'm investing my time up front, and that's what a lot of people don't really get. I'm investing my time to really understand what it is you're looking for, help devise strategies, and get the job done with all the resources that I have.
How do you, because I think that what you just mentioned, the scenarios is very common. You get that question from, I don't know, maybe it's an A personality person. Mm-hmm. They like to feel like they're in control.
Oh, sure.
And they're drilling down, well, not drilling down. They're rattling off questions that they assume you immediately know, like these are definitive answers.
Right.
Like boom. It's like it just doesn't happen that way. Right. And what's some things that you do to hopefully disarm some of these?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I usually do it with another question. Okay?
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be coy, but if anybody, whether it's CEO or first-time homebuyer, is asking me a question or rattling off a bunch of questions, I will seek to understand first, and that usually is with other questions, because depending on the answer, we could go in a couple different ways, and I would mm-hmm. probably come back with something like that and just say, let me make sure I understand what it is you're asking for, because we could go in a couple different directions.
Right.
And typically, with the experience I've had over these years, and being in business a long time, I've studied lots of different industries, and some stuff is parallel. It's always kind of understanding all your objectives and your clients. I can then discern, okay, this is where you're going, and then I'll do a check. So if you're asking me this, and then here's some possibilities, and yeah, are we in sync? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
And you've got to, if for somebody starting out, to get that kind of training, which may be more textbook, is key.
Yeah.
Because you need to know, and there's actually great books out there on how to ask questions. And I would say, or a consultative approach.
Right.
Because that is most helpful.
Well, because a lot of times, because we are the experts in our relative field, you've got this person asking this question, but really they're asking a question and they may not know. That's not really what they're asking, but that's the only thing they know to ask.
Exactly.
You know, obviously, when it comes to mortgage, what's the rate?
Right,
and
right.
You have to come, if you're in the mortgage business or any lending, that's the only question they know to ask.
Right,
You
right,
know, they
right.
they don't know of all the other things that
Right,
are going to happen
right.
in the next 30, 45 days or whatever.
Right.
And then when they're asking it, I'd imagine obviously you're dealing with a lot of unique properties.
Mm-hmm.
These are not, a lot of them are custom homes.
Yep.
And they're asking one question, but really expect you and your answer not to be yes, no, or black, white, to really open up and tell them all the more. But you've got to know why they're asking the question to know where you want to expand to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that the only way you get there is by asking more questions.
Yeah.
I've been successful. I have a lot of people that come to me that don't live in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So I have phone calls, or let's say I've connected with them. They know, they've said, this is what I want. They're going to come down at a certain time. I will call them back up, or set up a conference call with them, typically a Zoom call, because it helps to see both of us, and go through everything they're looking for, why they're looking for it, why they're looking at this neighborhood. Because many times, especially, excuse me, if they're coming from
a bottle of water? You need a bottle
yeah,
of water?
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Just take 2 seconds.
Okay.
I'll give you jump out here. You can go on and keep explaining it.
All right. It's difficult to talk to an empty chair. Thank you.
I should have got that. We got
That's
talking
okay.
at
No,
the
that's okay.
beginning.
So the point is that when I do a Zoom call before they get here, I say, listen, to make your visit much more productive, it's not just about showing properties, but it's making sure I understand what their objectives are.
Mm-hmm.
So many times buyers, in this case, will say, oh, we only want to be in this neighborhood, we only want this, we only want that. And so I'll go ahead and send them all that information, but then we'll have a call and we'll go through, and it gives me a chance to really tell them my knowledge about the area, things they could also consider. And many times we leave that call with a list of additional things for me to do, to say, hey, let me show you, I call it the Chamber of Commerce tour.
Mm-hmm.
So we may not actually, we'll see some homes, but let me give you an overall of these communities here so you have a better appreciation for it. And you don't get there unless you ask those kind of questions.
Right.
And by the way, for young, agents starting out, that shows you're really listening to them and wanting to make sure they understand the area and getting a full complement. How many times has a buyer said, oh, my agent just showed me this one neighborhood and I never got a chance to know that there were all these other ones. That is because the agent didn't do that.
Right.
So that's it.
No, I think the thought that went through my head while you were describing that, one, the agent that just rushes to that one house in Nocatee because they said they wanted all those things. Well, they may have said they wanted all those things, but didn't want some of these things. And you have to listen to that client, because the common thing I think is I think every agent's dealt with, they've been told something by a friend, relative, or whatever, like don't live in a CDD, for example.
Right.
But then when they start describing where they want to live, those are CDD communities, right? So you have to somehow warm them over to explain them, because obviously the information they had was not good, and you don't want to insult the person they got it from, because it might be someone they know and trust. But you're the expert, and you got to warm them over to say, hey, you can't just rush out, because if they're saying A, but they're really describing B, because you know B is, you're the professional, that's what they're actually wanting. You have to figure out, and the only way to win them over is through, like anyone, how to win friends and influence people, by listening to them, repeating that you're paying attention to their wants and needs. And so when it comes to the point of you suggesting, like, hey, based on what you've told me,
Yep.
I would recommend this because of A, B, and C, they're going to go or be more warm to your suggestion.
I can't tell you how many times that's happened in my career. One that sticks out is these clients were coming up from Delray Beach, which I actually grew up in mostly after we moved from New York. And they said, everybody said we want to live in St. Augustine, World Golf Village.
Right.
And I said, okay, great. And they had a couple neighborhoods. But I said, what are your objectives? Or I'll ask a different way. What do you like to do to Mr. Client? And he tells me golf, blah, 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 blah. And then I look to her and I say, what do you like to do? Well, I love the beach and this and this and this. As it turns out, they both liked the beach more than he liked golf.
Oh.
And
no, he just liked the fact that do whatever she likes to do. He knows better.
Oh, yeah. Who sits in the back seat? That's another whole story. So in this case, I showed them everything they wanted to see at World Golf Village. But I said, let me show you this little neighborhood in Ponte Vedra Beach, which is up and coming, and a walk to the beach. And that's where they bought.
Oh, 100, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, it was significantly over their price point. And I told them that. And I said, listen, this is maybe something you might want to aspire to, whatever. Well, guess what? They bought it.
They figured out how to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, I know we got lucky. We moved into St. John's Golf and Country Club. Fortunately, I sent my wife out. She had all these list of homes. I said, I'm going to work. You go, you narrow it down to 3 or 4 homes that you like, because it didn't really matter to me.
Right.
And it was 2009 and ended up being a foreclosure and ended up being obviously a great neighborhood and all the kids, and we grew our kids up there.
I was selling down there.
We were but I didn't even know what a CDD was.
Okay.
And then fortunately, I was in less than 7 months there. I was now on the CDD board, and I didn't even know what the CDD was. Yeah, I just volunteered to be on covenant enforcement, and they loved that on the HOA. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you could, we're gonna nominate you because you're the one person on the chairperson of the board liked what I was doing in covenant enforcement." And then also, so I'm on there, and I spent 11 years. Now I know what a CDD is.
Good.
But what I realized when I stepped back was, I got lucky. A lot of times we go in and we look at a house, but we don't actually take time to step back and look at, how far are we from the grocery store, or how far are we, if maybe you're shopping and if you're right now, of course, they're building a town center in the middle of Silverleaf there, but from a shopping standpoint, that's important to you. If a 20-minute drive, well, if you live in Northeast Florida and 20, 30 minutes is a long drive for you, everything's 20, 30 minutes away, no matter what you're doing. But, to really have that agent who's going to map that out and show you some of the, hey, here's some of the back roads. Here's where the school's at. Here's where the grocery store is at, and that sort of thing. Or hey, here's where the restaurants are. Because on 210, we didn't have a lot. We're starting to get some better restaurants, but if you want to go to you either drove the 20 minutes, 30 minutes down to St. Augustine, or you drove into Jacksonville.
Well, and it's so important. I deal with a lot of clients too that are new construction. They want to go to and get a new home, and I work with them quite literally on looking everything from not only the house that they're looking at and the style, but most importantly the lot. And if as an agent, I know how to look beyond the lots. What direction is it? Is it backing up to a preserve? Is it backing up to another development? Is it backing up to commercial space? I mean, all those things, and that's an expertise that the average buyer wouldn't have access to.
Yeah.
And it's really key and important, and to be highly involved at that, especially at that point in the process with a new construction deal.
I sort of felt sorry for it because I know, we got that new expressway coming over, and I knew some of the builders, site agents that were selling that neighborhood where literally that expressway is coming in, and they're not going to talk about it. And yet now, if you have a good agent representing you when you go into that new neighborhood,
right.
they would be telling you, hey, you got to realize in 7-8 years there's going to be an expressway coming in your back door.
Right.
Now, you've lived in New York. I was born in New York. I was born in Peekskill. We have a lot of people here from the greater New York City area,
right.
where reaching out and touching your neighbor, that's standard procedure for them. They don't think much about that.
Right.
Where there's others like, oh my God, I need a bigger yard, or oh my God, an expressway.
Yeah.
They're like, get me far away from that.
Right.
Yeah. So you really need to dig down, because would you agree, you may get that one sale, but when that expressway goes in, guess whose name they're.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I say in the very beginning, I look to establish a long-term relationship. I don't look at each deal as a transaction. I look about the fact that, maybe 7 years down the road, they might need to sell, or their kids are going to, want a little place, or their parents are going to want a little place. And I can't tell you how many of my clients that's been the case. I've sold them, I've sold their parents, and ongoing. And that's really how I approach my business. It's not that I want to be buddy with all my clients, which
it's nice, but you just have time.
Okay? I look at myself as a professional. I always have, but I do want a relationship with you, so I can make sure I understand your objectives, and then you can also understand what you can expect from me. So it's very key.
With that thought. Let's just say there's a newer agent listening. Someone's been, whether they've been in the business, just got their license, or they've been in it 2 or 3 years, and they hear you say that and say, well, that's easy for you to say, Mandy. You've been doing this 20 years.
Right.
You've sold a $13 million home. You're not chasing the paycheck, where some of them are, because they're hey, I don't have a deal next month. I got to figure out something, to eat, basically.
Right.
What do you say to them? In a way to get them to step back and evaluate what they're doing?
I'd say the most important thing is look at your database. So if you're a new agent and we're in a prior business, people doing other things. So look at your database, look at people you know and trust, and talk to them. If it's your buddy, call them up and say, do you know of anybody that's, thinking of moving here, or has friends that are thinking of moving here? So you've got to find, people that you can start to work with that are looking. And that takes some time, and that's tough. And I understand that. But it's all about the number one. And by the way, in my opinion, don't buy leads. Oh my God, if I had the money that I spent with Zillow, I could have retired. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. That's another whole story, but I probably shouldn't.
Well, I think today, would you agree? And I mean, you're over there operating, but from what I do hear from agents, one, they've gotten so expensive. Maybe if you were first in the market or so forth, or really have the money, as we know, there's a couple brokerages who really buy a lot. So I don't know, they probably get some sort of discount per lead. But you have to have that mindset. I mean, having grown up in the call center myself in the mortgage world, in Rocket, formerly Quicken, I mean, that's the way they operate. You got to be first to pick up that phone. Yeah. And because they know, especially when we're a refi shop up until 2009, and they started doing more purchases. But if you're not the first one to pick up the phone, you're out. Yeah. So that's you're sitting there talking to one customer, and then all of a sudden a lead's popping up and blowing. If you're not picking that phone up, someone else is, and you just got that mindset all the time. You've got to be operating that way, and then you only have that. That couple minutes to impress that person, or they're moving on to someone else, because that's the type of client you're chasing.
Yep, and I know that that's gotten even tougher because people. There's whole groups that brokerages that hire people, and that's all they do is try to call leads and warm them up and stuff like that. There's even a term for it. I can't remember it, but I would tell the go back and look at the people either from past business or not. Do a good job of telling them you're in the business, and ask for referrals for people that know and trust you already. Okay. Right. The second thing would be for the people in your office, do every open house you can do. I sit here and I smile of all the open houses I started with when I was with Watson, and I would sit there for hours and nobody would come in. It was like, what am I doing? But you really get to sharpen your saw a little bit on when people do come in. And most open houses and most sellers, I don't know if they know this or not, are really better for the agent than for the
seller
home.
himself. Yeah.
And so I would say those two things would be the things to focus on first, and then you're authentic with the people that know you, and because it's a numbers game. When you do this lead stuff, I have thousands and thousands of spreadsheets with leads I've gotten from lots of different groups, over the years, and maybe a small percentage really yielded anything. Yeah. Where am I getting most of my stuff? From the people that I've been working with and who know me over the years. So yes, I have the advantage of being in the business for 20 years, but when I first started out, not only had I not been in the business, I had not lived in this area. I moved here from Greenwich in 2004. Right. And then jumped into real estate in 2005. Right. And then had a heart attack in 2007 during the recession.
Well, you brought up brokerages, and I know that's one of the topics that I always like to bring up, and we were talking pre-show a little bit. My question is always, how important, and what's a good way, especially someone who's been in the business, has worked for 3 or 4 of the major brokerages in our area. First question is how important it is to a brokerage for many agents in getting their business off the ground, having whether it's a good broker or senior agents in there that'll mentor you or that you can rely on. And then the second part of the question, and I just forgot it.
So the first question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So let me clarify. So what exactly is the first question?
So the importance of getting with the right brokerage.
Okay.
That could really, you can't do everything. I know Compass because, like I said, my wife just joined and she's all excited about the technology and so forth that's there. How important is that as part of your business?
I think it's very important for somebody new coming into the business to really analyze some of the top brokerages. I say top brokerages because they'll have programs. Watson. I love Watson. They were meaningful in my first part of my career because they had programs that could teach you how to do your business. Then I gravitated to Keller Williams because they were focused on how do you build a business as a professional, as the CEO of your own business.
Basically a next level in your career. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I felt like I had that down, I was intrigued with Coldwell Banker. Having been with IBM for many years, Coldwell Banker was the go-to for relocations and stuff like that. So I was really focused on more of a global mindset, and that's one of the reasons I went there. But I would say I think it's the distinctions are becoming clearer today. But you want to look for 2 things: the kind of support that they have fundamentally in the brokerage, and then the leadership in the brokerage. Your managing broker is a key thing. It's a relationship. And if you don't get the right vibe from them, and maybe some of the agents in the office, it's probably not a good cultural fit. And that you're going to need that because one of the fastest ways to learn this business is to interact with your colleagues, and that's one of the things I love about Compass. Everybody is sharing. There's no, you know, everybody really just wants to help everybody do what they can. So
I mean, when I'm analyzing and I'm going through and seeing numbers. And who to invite on as guests on the show.
Right.
I mean, your office is probably heavily weighted. You don't have just one or two. You got 6 or 8. I mean, really heavy producers. And then they go on. And the second half of the question was, I think a lot of agents have a challenge because there's no special checklist that says how do you analyze what's a good brokerage for that individual, because you all do your business differently.
Right.
So what's some good ways to go in there and test, find out what's this broker like? Are the other agents in the office friendly for collaboration? How does that work? What are some of the things they should be asking some of the people they maybe should be talking to?
So even with 20 years experience, and I just joined Compass a couple years ago, 22. The number one reason was the tools. So let me just give you a little segue on that. Even at Coldwell Banker, I had my own CRM, customer relationship management system. I had a bunch of tools and applications I was paying for and integrating into everything. And I did a spreadsheet of all the expenses that I had for all those tools. What I didn't account for was my time to buy them, upgrade them, integrate them to all my other little applications. But so when I wasn't planning on going to Compass, but I knew that they were tech heavy. And so when I sat down with some of the people there, I showed them a little spreadsheet. So I said, so what do you have for all these things? Well, they had everything. And here's the key thing. I didn't have to be the CIO of my own business. I could be focused on my clients. They were going to handle the CRM that's integrated to the marketing, that's integrated to the video system, that's integrated to the presentation and brochures and social media at a push of a button.
Right.
So that is why I made that decision. But maybe it's instructive for a new agent. What are the things that are going to get you up on the ground quickly? Well, if you can plug into a system, and there are other people that have great technology out there. Don't get me wrong, Compass is not the only one, although I think it's the best. But then you don't have to focus on that. And you can just go out there and go and do the lead generation and the relationship development that you need to do to get business. That's, to me, today, number one. And now coupled with AI, and the little plug on AI is that when I went to my first kind of national meeting, which was in San Diego with Compass, and you go to all these conference breakouts and stuff like that. I went to the one on AI. So this was in I think 23 in San Diego. And so I go to the guy doing the Compass AI program. And he happened to be an IBM fellow, or ex-IBM fellow,
right.
Which was really a hoot. But in any event, it was very interesting to me that Compass was embracing at that time on a full-scale basis how to integrate AI into taking these great tools and even making them more efficient and productive. So, but those are things that I would say to an agent, look at, everybody's got a different thing. You may or may not be a techie. You may or not be a good analyst. But you do need to know your market, and you have to stay up with it. I mean, there's a button I push every morning that I can see what's going on in the market, and then I can see all my clients that are on all my feeds and what they're looking at. It's like, wow, you know. Before I had to go to this and this and this, and I had to.
Well, so recently, I don't know if Tom talked about it, and I've been talking about it on the show because this is cutting edge stuff. This gentleman, Lyman Starmer, who we've met, usedeli.com. Lyman is creating an actual natural language home search thing. And I think the younger people get AI like that. You're sub 30, from what I understand, they don't go to Google. They're going on AI and asking them whatever they recommend, what should I do, that kind of stuff. And obviously that's going to spill over into our industry,
Right.
searching for homes and other. And to stay away from the general term, or when someone says, yeah, we're using AI, you have to return the question, how are you using it?
Yeah.
Because too many people are lumping it into, so I don't know if she'll listen to this if she remembers saying this to me, but this very influential person, when I mentioned it to her, hey, I want to introduce Lyman to you. This is what he's doing. Blah blah. Oh, I was just at a conference. They were talking about AI, and I'm like, no. I'm like, no, this is a little different. Not to say different, but a little different part of it. And what you're talking about when they're integrating all these systems that you're talking about, and I heard I just listened to the end of your CEO, I guess the video you guys were sent out the other day. It was forwarded to me, and where he was talking about, literally, and I visualized an agent being in their car, saying, "Hey, add John Smith to my CRM, blah, 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 just met him," whatever. And you're literally just talking to it as if it was your assistant sitting right beside you taking notes.
Yeah.
And it's inserting it into your CRM and doing all those things that we all know we should be doing on a regular. Every person that we meet, adding them to our influence, whatever we're sending out, newsletters or whatever. And you have to, so when the AI question comes up is what I want to, you have to go deeper. What are you using it? Show me how you're using AI to help my business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a really good question, because right now the general opinion, let's say, or experience that agents have across the board, not maybe the brand new ones, is to write better listing descriptions and a brochure and make sure my grammar's right and stuff like that.
It's great for that. It's good.
It's great for that. But let me tell you, I just went through an intensive 4-week deal with a guy who used to be with Compass, and now he's kind of broken off in that. And the first day I got out of that session, I called some friends and I said, the last time I felt like this, like, oh, wow, was when I was with IBM and realizing what DARPA had created with the internet. And it was like, it's almost hard to explain to somebody all that it can do.
Yeah.
So let me just give you a couple examples. In this course, I went back to our MLS, and I had a spreadsheet of all the deals I've ever done. Okay? I had my complete CRM, so my list of all my clients, which are some clients and some are leads, some are just relationships.
Yeah, right.
I put in past presentations. I'm noted for doing very detailed strategy emails to my clients.
Past presentations meaning?
Listing presentations, buyer presentations, anything that I
all your files that you had created that you actually handed the customer.
Right.
Okay.
And uploaded this. In this case, it was to ChatGPT, but he was espousing Chat or Claude or Gemini or whatever. So it could learn who Mandy Morrow was, who's Mandy's clients, what's her style, all this kind of stuff. And the whole purpose of this is to understand my business. And so I can now, and I'm starting to do a little bit more of this, I can not only analyze my clients and where they're coming from and any trends to that, so that I can make a distinction when I have a new listing. I really should go after these people because they have these kinds of needs. Now, we all have had those questions in the past, but getting to those answers, it's garbage in, garbage out on the data thing. It was always harder to discern that information, like you said. Everybody tells you, go ahead and feed your CRM. So if you just met this person, put in some key, you got to do that stuff. But at the end of the day, I could also, upload my P&L and say, where am I promised, or where am I spending more money that given this, why are you spending money over here? I mean, it can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, for an agent, why do they care? It goes back to my theme that I talked to you when I walked in. The number one thing for agents today is, where do you spend your time? You want to spend your time with the clients and understanding their needs, not doing this stuff. But you need this data in order to be more efficient and effective with them. And that's where AI is going to make a difference if agents really learn how to apply it correctly, in my opinion.
Would you recommend, I mean, obviously you went and took this course. It took some time. I'm sure there was an investment made. But for those who can get some, I think there is a lot of people out there. I know there's some people here locally trying to do some things, and I know they don't know what they're talking about. They know how to do listings. They're doing what you're trying to do, listing descriptions and captions for your social media. It's like that. You're not even
Scratching.
You're embarrassing. So if they're not already doing, they knew that. Anyone can go in there and do that.
Right.
And actually, I think the add-on a lot of people don't know is upload the pictures too.
Yeah.
Upload the pictures and say, analyze these pictures and give me a listing description, and then go in there and tweak it a little bit, because it might see some things that you don't see.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you're doing that, but that's, it's getting so much better every day from that. But that really, if you see yourself in this business, if maybe you're retiring in a year or two, you can say no. But if you see yourself in this business another 5, 10, 15 years or more, you probably want to step back and go and take one of these courses, because it's going to make your life so much easier.
Au contraire.
Yeah.
I won't tell you how old I am. Tom better not either. But, and I don't plan on retiring, but I am trying to really focus my business on that 20%. People that know me, respect me, and I can be of value to them, because I know what I know, and I know how to negotiate, I know how to do strategies and get the job done to their satisfaction. I am using this to make myself much more productive, so I can take that trip to Italy that I've wanted to take for a couple of years.
Right.
So it's across the board. I would say not just somebody who's going to be in the business for another 5 or 10 years, but 5 or 7 years too.
Right.
And it's making your business more efficient and effective.
I think you can use the analogy. Big corporations like IBM spend lots of money.
Yep.
To break down in sometimes they go over years and go, hey, where are we wasting money? And then they go in and close down a whole division, right? Because you're not, the return on investment's not there, you're gone.
Yeah.
You could be doing this on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis.
Absolutely.
To say, where am I wasting my advertising, or that kind of thing, and really be tweaking yourself on a regular day. And companies pay lots of money to have departments that's all they do.
Yeah.
Analyze that.
I mean, that's it. Bingo.
Yeah. Let's. You had. I don't know if you had some other. We talked about AI. You wanted to talk about the brokerages. Well, do we miss anything you wanted to add there?
Well, I hit on the theme about, for all agents, all experiences. It's really where you spend your time, and then and where you spend your money. And then I said that in this business, tongue in cheek, in the real estate business, there's 2 categories of business. There's the brokerages and the agents, and then there's the vendors that send them all the stuff.
That's right. You want to talk about? Yeah.
Because honestly, and I said Zillow, but I've also bought other leads and other services, and if I had a fraction of that money. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And especially as new agents come in, they'll say, well, what do you, somebody called me about this application, and you're so worried about following the paycheck that you ignore the fact that these people just asked you for, 2 or 3 times that paycheck with the promise of giving you leads. I get calls and texts every day. Oh, we've got this lead thing, and blah blah blah. It's if they're calling me, they're calling other agents, and so it's an interesting phenomenon about this business. The attrition rate in this business is significantly high, and so I would say anybody coming into the business or in the business now, focus on your clients. You do them right, you'll stay in the business.
Would you, a lot of them chase too, hey, what's the cut, right? What's the commissions, the spread? And a lot of them are going to some, and not to take anything away, I think real brokerage is really hot right now because they are highly big in tech, and they're doing, I think, a lot of things that Compass are doing. But instead of spending a lot of on those things that you're talking about, like buying leads and stuff that's out here, focus on, if they focused on finding the right brokerage, maybe the brokerage is taking a little bit more cut, but what they're giving you, maybe it's a transaction coordinator, someone doing your marketing that's helping you leverage that, and spend more time, like you said, going out and building the relationships, handing out the business cards, shaking hands, spending more time with the actual client in front of you, asking more questions. That's really that's gotten your business to where it's at today.
Yeah. So in my situation, I can tell you this, that when I left in my former brokerage in 22, and I did it based on the fact that I had this tool set, my commission went down slightly, okay? The split, I'll call it, okay?
Yeah.
But in all the years since then, I have more than doubled my business and earnings and have a life as well, because I wasn't paying for or trying to integrate or keep up with technology, because that is not the business of an agent. The technology should come from your brokerage, and the one thing that I feel strongly about, otherwise I wouldn't be here, is the technology that Compass has is focused on the agent, not on the brokerage. I won't name the brokerage, but one brokerage that I worked for was so focused on the agents inputting all the CRM stuff that was all designed for them to report up to headquarters what was going on. It's like they never even talked to an agent. Is this
all of a sudden there will be nothing to report?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, understanding those nuances, I think, is important.
Well, I've always used the analogy in sales, and I've seen it's probably upset me. I know, we know Tom. I think he feels the same way. We have a lot in common. If they're not supporting the soldier on the front line with the right equipment, with the ammunition, making sure they're fed and they're getting sleep, you are going to lose the war.
Yeah, we will.
And if those supply lines are not there, they're not always, all the great management books, John, if the management's not serving you and you're on the front line, you're the one greeting the people, you're the one bringing in the sales, you're the ones closing the deals. That's what makes everything else happen. Oh, yeah. And I think, like you said, some of these companies get caught up with their own mid-level management minutia that they're trying to satisfy some stockholders. It's like, well, you're going to lose that game eventually.
Well, it was such a breath of fresh air. It's not a commercial for Compass, but we're talking about this to join Compass because of all the executives I was meeting, and I was meeting them. The CEO, Robert Repkin, called me at 9:30 at night to welcome me to Compass. I never even met the CEOs of any of the other companies, and I was so impressed on that. And all the layers underneath that are the same thing. They know me. We talk on conferences on the week.
Right.
They share their perspectives from a high level and then down on a regional level. I mean, I've never seen this kind of, and it's good because I know my local territory and my local client stuff, but there are times I really need to know what's going on regionally, what's going on in Florida, what's going on in the Southeast, and of course nationally as well. So look for a brokerage that you feel will give you that kind of thing.
Yeah. Spins us off, and slight change, but tangent to what we're talking about is you've been involved in different committees and so forth. Outside of just, I think a lot of agents just get caught up. There's a lot of agents who are probably more involved in some of these committees, whether it's locally or statewide, that they get away from their business.
Yes.
But it's tough to kind of do both. But how important has that been in really your, I always say you really got to sometimes step back and get a 30,000 foot vision of what's going on. Because sometimes you can get stuck right in the weeds of Ponte Vedra and not realize all this other stuff is going on. And then some of the affluent clients that you're working with, they are reading the Wall Street Journal. They're reading these other stuff on a national, global basis in real estate, and they come in and talk. And if you're not somewhat in touch with what's going on, tell us what those things did for you.
So two aspects of that. First of all, I'll do the Wall Street Journal kind of thing. I would tell any agent today, you are the CEO of your business, all right? You've got to act like that. So yes, you've got your business at hand, selling widgets, whatever the deal is, but you have to have an appreciation for the market and what's going on, nationally as it pertains to your business and or your clients. So that's very key. And I do. I read quite a lot of national news and international news, because if you're dealing with especially high-end clients, they understand international news and forces that are affecting their business.
Which may be a question they're asking, and now you know why they're asking.
Right. And by the way, I didn't say it earlier,
yeah.
But if you've got a client, I always ask what is their business. If they're retired, I ask what was their business, and ask specific questions, because that will tell you a lot. So that's just a side.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you were referring to, when I first got into the business, I was heavily involved on a local MLS. I was on their data committee looking at, the fields that they would have in MLS. I forget the name of that. I was on their international committee to espouse global international relations with other MLSs. I was on a couple FAR committees, Florida Association of Realtor down in Orlando committees. And then, of course, community outreach and various things. Volunteer Florida with Governor DeSantis, and our GTM, the Research and Reserve Group is a key thing in Ponte Vedra. So I think it's important because it gives you access to broader views. You get to meet other people too, and you're involved in things that are good. So whatever that is that resonates with an agent, it's important, in my opinion, to be involved in that. So.
A lot of people, the common thing is here, like, education. How important, you're talking to some of these new agents that, they're starting today. They just got their license last week, and they're ready to get going with their brokerage. To fill their day, because if they're not shadowing somebody and physically being with somebody, and they're like, okay, what do I do?
Right.
I think it was Sharon Mills who took her corporate experience at General Motors and was talking about, put a full day, put that 9 to 5 in. Put that full day in. Don't think, hey, I don't have anything to do this afternoon. That they should be searching out lunch and learns or whatever's going on at NEFAR as far as training, and take it in. And sometimes take these classes, especially contract classes, 2 or 3 times. That really they have to come into real estate and operate just like they were if they were working for somebody on an hourly basis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is really critical. There's so much education. All realtors around here join NAR. NAR has a whole bunch of education. You can get education. So I would say, go that route. I ended up advancing my education by getting my broker's license. Not that I was going to go off and create my own shingle or anything, but it gives you a much higher level of understanding of things. This is a tough business. As you know, it turned on a dime with all these lawsuits in the last year or two. Our entire MLS database changed last year. Our entire contracts that we deal with our clients changed. We all had to go back to school to really understand the nuances from attorneys on what's in these new contracts. That takes a lot of time. I mean, I spent a lot of time last year, and I have 20 years in the business. But that's critical, because you're having your client sign a contract with you on a listing or on a buy. You better know what's in that contract and what the ramifications are. So I would say seek out everything, and yes, it is. I would love to have to realize that this is a 9-to-5 business. Ha ha ha! It's not. It's more than that.
And for those agents out there who have done a deal with you, maybe hopefully will do a deal with you in one way, shape, or form or another. I imagine you've run across some agents that you just want to reach through the phone, because especially when you're dealing with not that the $300,000 or $400,000 don't have negotiations; they got negotiations too.
Yep.
But sometimes you can get some unique buyers and sellers out there. If you've read Ryan Serhant's book, he talks about some of these, but when speaking to, if you had advice for some of those agents you've had on the other end of the phone that you're like, you just want to like bring them in and like teach them, they're not handling it the way you would handle it and with your experience. What are some of the advice? I mean, you could share a story maybe that you recently, don't have to mention names, obviously, where there's just a better way to do it so that everyone wins. Because the bottom line is, you have someone that wants to sell a house, someone wants to buy a house.
Right.
How do you get them there?
Yeah. Yeah, 2 points on that. And that's a really good question, okay? Because I've had a lot of experience with that. The number one thing is, you're representing a client, whether a seller or a buyer. Your number one loyalty is to them. And so you've got to obviously keep that in mind. But to that end, let me give you just a rough example. If you are a seller and an agent comes and presents a crazy lowball offer, I try to be not educational, but consulting with the other agent. How did you come up with that, or how did your buyer come up with that number? Okay. And then I've got a pretty standard format of how I would ascertain comparative market analysis on just a statistical level. And it's a one-sheeter, and it's very easy to get out of our MLS. And I will do that for the buyer's agent. And I'll say, this is how, let's make sure we're dealing with the same data, okay?
Right.
Send that to them, and then have a talk with them and say, what do you think? And they go, oh, but I don't know if they're, I said, why don't you share this with them? Because this is really where the market is. And then you could do a plus or minus, a couple percent, so they feel like they get a deal. And there's lots of ways that, so the way I approach those kinds of situations is to discuss it with them and not be adversarial, because
you mean you don't say you're crazy?
Well, no, that's after the deal is done. It's like, oh my God, where's that person? I'm not gonna next time. I mean, it says it's a joke. It's not a joke, but when I'm doing a deal and I'm bringing a deal to another agent, or they're bringing one to me, and it's somebody I've dealt with in the past, I go, oh God, this will be great. This will be a good thing, because we both understand the business. We're both fair and square. That's all you really want at the end of the day. And it's just like, oh, great. When it's somebody that's an unknown, I give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. And if it's somebody that I've had an issue with the past, I've just a little bit higher, awareness of that I may have to, deal a little bit more differently with them. But I really try to teach. But I don't want them to think I'm teaching them, because that could insult them.
Right.
But try to, make it work that way.
when you're dealing with, you're in that multi-million dollar price point, the fluctuation of a price of a home, easily $50,000-$100,000, I would imagine, sometimes overnight.
Right.
What was the last whole house sold? Because those houses don't sell every day.
Right.
It's not like, some cookie cutter, planned urban development. These are custom homes and how you arrive at some price. So I would imagine, sometimes the buyer will just throw it out there just to see what you say.
Mm-hmm.
What's the response?
Mm-hmm. Well, I had a situation one time when I had a listing in Sawgrass Country Club. That's where I live, and my seller was focused on this number, and this buyer's agent came in with a ridiculously low number. And
you had some number in between, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my seller said, "Nope, I'm not going to even reply." So I was going, "Oh, he's not going to even, just tell him that he's nuts. We just listed it. Whatever the deal is." Nope, didn't want to reply. So I had to say something to the agent. I said, "Listen, we just listed it. I have comps that support this, but he's officially not going to even counter." Well, the agent went, "Oh, what do you mean he's not going to counter?" I said, "But that's what my seller has chosen to do."
Mm-hmm.
So we pushed back from the table. A couple days went by. Another offer comes in, a little higher.
Same person?
Same one, yeah.
Yep.
And so we did this 4 to 5 times, and we got very close to his listing number.
You just had to wait it out a week or so, 2 weeks maybe. Yeah.
And it doesn't always happen that way. There's all kinds of things. I've had recently. I've had even people say, "Well, we'll just split the difference." Well, we're not in a real estate market that supports split the difference.
Mm-hmm.
It really is based more on market data. We have more and more of that, and so it's tough negotiating right now. I'll tell you, it really is.
Well, for obviously a majority of the, we do have a lot. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of cash in the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
From lending side, we look at, I think it's somewhere between 50 and 60% in Northeast Florida is cash, type of the, but where the interest rates are at right now. Of course, we've been, we were told over 2 years ago by some of the mortgage experts. I don't even listen to him. Tom listens to him. I refuse to listen to him anymore because he told us in the summer of 23 that we would see high 4% interest rates. Mm-hmm. It was May of 22 when the rates shot up.
Right.
Yeah, but with the market right now, and if you were advising a group of agents that are out there selling, really from really $0 to $600,000-$700,000 homes. It is a buyer's market. Mm-hmm. The rates are high, but now's the time to get the deal that those buyers are looking for, because I believe if the rates, we start to see 5.875 on a 30-year fix, it's going to be a frenzy because there's so much pent-up sellers, people who haven't sold their home that want to move, but they're waiting because they know what they moved to. They don't want to pay 6.875, but 5.875 they might eat it, and then obviously we have a bunch of buyers sitting on the sidelines waiting for the same thing. Right. So this is going to be this frenzy. So if you were coaching agents right now, on how to express to their buyers, like, it's a buyer's market. Yeah. Well, here's some options we can do. Now's the time to buy. You might refinance in 2 years, so you make 20 payments. All right. What kind of conversation you have to have with their buyers?
I mean, I've got some very low price listings right now that fit that category and that are getting no showings. I just did a Instagram thing on Sunday. I was at the office, and I said that to buyers. I said, buyers, the inventory has shot up. You've never had so much choice ever. So it's a challenge because there's still a little bit of deer in the headlights going on. And it takes a while for people to do that, and it might take a little, bump down in the interest rates to get people to say, "Oh, goodness, I should be out there." The other strategy is that if you can't get a direct buyer, shift to investors. So look at your CRM and say, do I have anybody that would want to buy and hold and do rentals? Because this is at a really good price. So that would be another strategy to think of.
So every agent really on a lot of their listings, especially a home that could be rented out, they should be analyzing quickly what kind of rent can this house get. As I know, Tom's educating. I'm going to ask you kind of give us a story on how a great lender helps you close deals. That's we'll finish with that.
Okay, good.
But these DSCR loans, if you're in an area where you can get a nice rent. And with 20 or 30% down, these DSCR loans that really are just looking at, hey, what is the payment, the cost of the home versus what's the rent.
Right.
And if you're in a neighborhood where that matches, you got yourself an investment property right now, which I think you would agree. If the rates drop, we will see an increase in price point depending on the area that we're in.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right on that.
Tell us a story how a great lender can make a deal for you.
Okay. Well, Tom has saved my bacon many, many times, but there's one in particular, a really good client in Sawgrass TPC, and we found the right home for them, and can't remember the year. Oh gosh,
They were selling a home and moving in, or just
they were buying a home.
They're coming into the area.
Were they coming into the area? Yeah, they were coming into the area.
Okay.
Yeah, he was coming over from Panama City, and this guy, his business was finance and investing, so he knew numbers. Okay. Which is really fun because Tom can go toe to toe, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so everything was working great until the loan appraisal came. The appraisal came back, and we were far apart. It was a big number on the price of the home, but
it's a low appraisal.
Yeah, and it was big numbers, big numbers, right? So it was nothing to sneeze at. And I said, "Oh my God, what do we do?" So we worked out a strategy where we actually got another appraiser, and then we had to negotiate with the seller and try to whittle that down. I'm trying to think who he was working for at the time, but the bottom line is Tom he's got the contacts, no matter which group he's with, to make the deal happen. And between Tom working his end on the finance and me working my end between the buyer's agent and the seller, or the buyer and the seller in this case, the seller's agent, we were able to make the deal done.
Yeah.
But again, it gets back to Tom and I are totally in sync. He understands that I understand. You're talking about asking questions to the agents you're dealing with. He'll ask me these questions. If I don't know the answers, I'm going to go back and find them before we move further along. Because at the end of the day, what that's saying is, if you don't understand the playing field, you can't negotiate. So that's a critical thing.
Yeah.
So.
That's a great point. Because a lot of times I think we just assume they're just going in and buying a shirt, and if they don't like the color of the shirt, they're just going to go somewhere else. It's not like that in real estate. There's only one address. There's only one house that's, how the backyard's laid out. They walk into that house and they see themselves driving into that driveway every evening, right?
Exactly.
And living, raising their kids, whatever it may be. And we really need to know, the phrase, how bad do they really want it? Is this, are they willing to spend a little extra to get it? Or is the seller, what is their situation? Or they need to get out of this place? And, I know Tom brings up a lot of stories when it comes to lending, especially when you're dealing with the, higher end homes. I think when people start going over $1 million, their attitude is all based on the market, what their investments are doing.
Oh, yeah.
If the investments are doing well, I have no problem buying that $1.5 million house or whatever.
Well, it depends on that.
Yeah.
There's times my phone rings off the hook when the market tanks because where they're going to put their money.
We're going to move it to.
Well, we might well move to real estate in Ponte Vedra because look at the appreciation rate.
Right.
So, and that again gets back to read your Wall Street Journal, read your, Financial Times. Really understand on a broader basis, on a local basis. I remember when I was at Watson, and Mr. Watson was still there. I made the mistake and called him Bill one time in a meeting, and I think half the women almost had a heart attack because I called him Bill. It's like, no disrespect, sir, but I called John Akers John at IBM. So, but he was really good because he would look at the local factors that really affect the economy, employment rate and job growth and things like that. And he always had that, right at his fingertips, and that's key to have that stuff too.
Well, to have, I call it verbal ammunition. You've got to, and then knowing why. Again, back to why they're asking that question. Maybe the market has gone up or gone down, and that's what's causing them to make that decision. So you got to go back to that reason of why they're actually having this conversation with you and relate that to them. Tom was telling the story that the client that you had was moving locally, but if he took his money out of his investments, he would have been taxed tremendously.
Right.
And it was cheaper for him to take this little short-term loan to get to where he wanted to go.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. With the dark horse.
Yeah, to get to where he wanted to go. And then we've had Dark Horse over. For those who know, Dark Horse does basically, they're an equity lender, hard money, whatever you want to describe it, and they're short-term lenders. They're not they do a 30-year fix, but they're looking at the collateral.
Right.
They made the loan. The guy didn't even actually make a payment. You sold his current home, and he was able to pay that loan off, and it was probably 30 days or less.
Less than 30 days.
Yeah.
Less than 30 days.
But
that
the reasonings for him wanting to move, that's the important thing.
Yeah. And then having a partner like Tom, because once I understood this is what he wanted to do, I called Tom and we strategized on it. And he said, I think I have a way to do this. And so I said, okay. And we went to the next step and we covered it off with my client. He liked the idea. And then I was under, oh my God, I got to sell this other place. But, we were able to price that right. And the story goes on. I don't know much more time to it, but we put his place on the market, which was a luxury condo within the gates of Sawgrass Country Club. And the day we put it on the market, that day we get two very interested buyers because we priced it right and it's a lovely place and totally redone. Another theme of today right now. And then, we got an offer coming in the next morning. And I got a call from my client, and he said he was on the top floor of this condo, and it rained the night before, and they were changing the roofs, and they didn't put a tarp on it.
Oh no!
And water came down through it. And my seller called me. I mean, he's got a lot on the line, right? He's just bought this other home. He's got this buddy out there. We just put this on here. We have, this is everybody's gonna hear about this.
Right.
So he calls me up at 6:30 in the morning. He says, "Mandy, what are we gonna do? There's water that came through the condo and everything." So I said, "Is the contractor there? Is the management company there?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'll be right over." I go to the contractor guy, who's the head of the company, and I looked at him and I looked at the management guy and I said, "You've got 4 hours to give me a letter that says that you're gonna fix this right now." All the damage in his unit, and you're going to give me a 6-month protection. Anything that a buyer, once they bought it, might reveal that wasn't discovered.
Fixed or
And you're going to have that to me by 3 p.m. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the deal, and I don't know what my seller is going to do, but he's not going to be very happy. He might have to call his lawyers.
Well, that's a little hair to that deal that I didn't hear about.
Oh yeah, and guess what? I got the letter. I gave it to one person who was actually writing the offer. I said, "Here's the deal. We'll be totally transparent." And believe it or not, that was like a Thursday. By Monday, the place was all fixed. painted, everything.
Spotless, yeah. Well, that goes. I think a lot of agents would have just stepped to the side and been like telling their seller, "Oh, you do this, that." You stepped in
Lean in,
and took
babe.
control. Yeah,
You gotta lean in. In this business, and I called, the president of the association. I got him involved. It's getting the deal done. I mean, this is where my New York comes out. But and I'm nice about it. I wasn't that mean to him, but I helped them understand what was at stake here for the seller and for all the other people in that building. So
yeah. Was there anything else on there that we didn't hit?
I think, let's see. No, I think that's it.
We got everything. Well,
Other than the fact that this whole time I didn't tell you, which I'm sure you know, but for 4 years in a row, I have to say this: Compass has been the #1 brokerage in the United States by volume. Nobody seems to know that. Every time I bring that up to a client, really, but it's true.
well, I personally, even though I'm involved in the business, but it goes back to what I said earlier. When I'm looking in at the different brokerages and stuff, there's shops I pull up, and there's no one even on that list that I would invite to come on the show as a top producer. You guys have got this list of people, and I would think any agent out there, if you've been in the business a little bit and you want to be surrounded, there's a couple other brokerages that I would recommend. But if you're trying to get in this luxury, you want to hang out, you want to be in the 5 people you hang out with type of thing and be the 5th person. Yep. Compass here in Jacksonville is a place to be. For sure.
We've only been here a couple years, and so we're still, trying to explain to people who we are. We're not the bank. We're, real estate firm.
Yeah, and I've been to your office.
But we're in an old bank building.
That's right.
So and there's some firms that do a little bit better than we do just because of sheer volume of agents. But Compass being, and it's one firm, there's no franchises. So that was the other reason why I went to Compass. We're all one company. Big diff.
Right.
Big diff. And we've got a good long-term strategy, having bought, Christie's International and things like that.
Well, you've been to a couple, Watson's great for new agents.
Sure. Well,
Keller
Watson
Williams is great for new agents.
Yeah.
And there's some agents that have grown, and there's some powerful teams.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
know
a lot of the folks at Keller Williams. They're super people.
Yeah. But when you think about it, if I'm out there an agent and I'm producing, as my wife was been looking for over a year, and she decided to join Compass, and the energy and money that can be spent when you are really focused on this whole spectrum from 0 to whatever your top producer is. There's a lot of, we know 70-something% of the agents didn't even do a deal. I would say less than 5 did more than a dozen deals, or more, right? So I would say Compass is in that they're focused on those people doing the 12, 15, 20 deals, and so that they can really focus their energy and, like you said, the technology of what are top producing agents that have customers all the time. What do they need? And that's the supply lines, taking those other things off your plate so that you can focus on the clients in front of you. Right. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, this was a lot of fun.
It was.
I was a little nervous coming on, but